Okay, this is technical test number 1, multi-camera. What we have here is we have two cameras set up in possibly the cheapest, most ghetto way. I've just set my cameras on some stands, and because I'm not sure whether I like this software yet, and so rather than invest a bunch of hardware, I'm just going to test the technical items. So if you don't like the content of this video, that's really not the point. The content of this video is secondary to the technical details. I'm going to save and upload this and review it so that I can do my testing. But ultimately this video is personal, just for me to get some of the kinks worked out in my multi-camera broadcasting. And if you're here watching this, thank you. Alright, so the primary intention of this multi-camera broadcasting option is to broadcast live battles, live tabletop battles. And unfortunately I don't have an opponent right now. And again, this is just a technical test, and so rather than playing out a skirmish with myself, I'm just going to do some painting. Because some of the same aspects in painting, some of the details in painting that you want to see, because when I watch a painting tutorial, typically it's just one. You see this view here with the one guy, and the guy comes in and he paints, and then his fingers disappear, and then he paints with a different color, and then he does something, and then paints a different color, or whatever. I would like to see the actual palette, what's going on there, so that I can get better, so that I can learn the techniques. So here is my palette for this specific painting, or for this model. Put this palette together. This is just like a Tupperware box. On the base of the box is a bunch of paper towels that have been cut and folded. And on top of that there is a baker's sheet, or a baker's parchment. I forget what they call it. But then I've soaked the towels in water, and then you can put the paint on top of the parchment, and the paints last a long time. They don't dry out, and you can get a good mixture of moisture and pigment and everything. There you see a little bit of oops here. Just before I started recording, I dropped my ink bottle. It went splat and splashed some stuff in here, so I had to get some more white. This is just a warm white. We've got magenta, purple. This is a maroon that I've been using for red, because on the and you'll see here on my figure here, that bright red sash is actually based white, and then I put this magenta color over the top of it. There we go. Put this magenta color over it, and it seeps into the cracks and into the holes and makes that a really brilliant red color. And then actually I'm going to put both of these up so you can see. So he's got this gold stuff going on here. That's actually, the base is brown and green, and then you build up from green to green yellow to yellow gold, and then the very highest is the gold. With this gold paint that I use, it ends up being just gold reflective material. There's not actually any real pigment in there. So let me show you. So take, oh, that's a bad example. Let me grab a good example here. Okay, so here is an exemplar Cinerator from Menoth, and he's got a bunch of gold on him. But you see on the bottom of his shield here, right? It's red, but then it's got this gold sheen on the top, and that's what that gold paint that I'm using does. And so if you were to try to do these gold layers, this gold look, any of this gold stuff, and it was just, you took your gray primed man and you put some gold on there. Well, it would end up being, well, it's just a gray color, and it reflects gold. It's got a gold sheen on it. And so with my palette, you really have to build the color underneath from the brown, green, yellow to gold. And then I do, on the highest highlights, I put just a dab of just the pure gold, because eventually you can put it on thick enough. I guess you can put it on thick enough. Let me show you here. So here's my Cinerator again, but on the bottom here, if you put it on thick enough, eventually it is just pure gold. And so that's what, and you can see it's really shiny there in the light. And that can mess up your detail on your miniature. You don't want just this glowing, at least my effect that I was going for was not just this glowing gold. I really wanted kind of a weathered, a more weathered effect where you could actually see the details, the nuts and bolts and stuff. Okay, so that is my gold colors here, flesh, and then I use this blue and gray to shade the cloak, or his white. You can see on there, it's there, that's a good view. So you can see where his undercloak, what do you call that, dress, I don't know, his monk's robe, there it is, it's a robe. His robe is white, and then to get the detail to show up when it's on the tabletop, I use the blue and the gray to force you to see the fold, so it's not just a white blob when it's on the table. And then the flesh, there's not a lot of flesh on this guy. I think maybe there's some fingertips underneath, some fingertips underneath his bandages or something, but mostly it's just his head. And so I use just this flesh color, and then I'll pigment it with either a tiny bit of magenta or a tiny bit of the brown, depending on the skin tone that I'm looking for. You can see on this other guy, I'm going for more of a African American. Of course, there's no Americans or Africans in this setting, but a black guy. Going for that kind of look, so that, because these guys are very, very similar. Here, there's an identical model, and I want to have a little bit of differentiation as to who's who and what's what. And so I figured a little bit of different skin pigmentation. Somebody that's really pale, somebody that's black, somebody that's white. I'm probably on one of these guys gonna do some like shaven head, like just a gray on there, so we can so I can differentiate who's who by what's on their head. Of course, it's easy on the main guy because he has no flesh on him, none whatsoever. Okay, so I guess we'll get started with the actual painting now that I've got all of that out of the way. Okay, so here's the model that I'm going to work on today. I've kind of gotten started on some of the white. I'm going to take a little bit of this. Oh, and this big puddle over here is matte medium. I'm not sure if I said that. You mix it with water and the paint, and you can get a good consistency. Now this first little bit, I'm just kind of slopping it on, because I really just want to have this flat color, flat white, and then wash in the folds. Maybe do a little dry brushing on the top to get the really white. Oh, I realized you couldn't see. Now, I'm no professional. This is maybe the 20th model I've ever painted in my life. And so my paint consistency is not so great. I think that's a little more liquid than I would like to see. And I am kind of being messy with it, slopping it on there. Now I'm working on the white first, and actually on this portion, the what do we call that, his sash, that's going to be red. In order to get the red that I really like, I use the maroon over a white base, so I'm going to paint his sash white while I'm already doing the white. Now his tabard there is going to be purple, and so I'm going to try and keep the white from getting onto the tabard. And this paintbrush got a really decent point on it, and it was just a cheapo from Home Depot. Cheapo from Hobby Lobby. And it came in a big pack. My kids got some paints and some paintbrushes. And I stole one that had a good point. And this is it's actually number 5. When I was looking online, when I first got started at this, there's all kinds of advice about what brand and what type of paintbrush to use. And since I'm still practically brand new at the painting, I wasn't going to spend a lot of money on fancy paintbrushes till I was sure that I was going to develop the skills and everything necessary in order to make that investment, make it worth the investment. And so far, this cheapo's doing pretty well. I actually got several others. I got some really fine points. I did go ahead and get some really teeny tiny fine point brushes, but they dry out so quickly, and I'm not necessarily a fast painter, and so when you're trying to paint and the paint you're trying to use on your brush dries up almost before you can touch the brush to the model, that made things very difficult for me. So I really like this. Really like this big brush with a nice point on it. All right, my cameras are all giving me alerts saying that their batteries are dying. And I suppose recording lots of video will do that. Not that there's been lots of video, but anyway, yep, nice and gloppy, very ugly. But that's the way I start, and eventually you end up with. See this next guy. I've done some purple on him, and kind of started the parchment and stuff. That's just white. I've got all the white on there. I haven't done any shading yet. I was going to start shading in a little while. You see his sash under there. I basted it in white, but it hasn't been. I haven't added the red to it yet. Just while I've got some white on my brush, I'll do this. Now with the parchment, I should have paid better attention when I was doing this one. This is my tester, and I kind of like the way that looks. But it ended up being like a melange of colors. Brown and blue and gray and white. And I did purple with a bit of that gold sheen for the letters on there. Doesn't look so great up close, but when it's on the tabletop, you can tell it's just words or scriptures or something. And so, as I'm trying to duplicate that effect, that same parchment look, I'm going to have some trouble. But eventually I'll get it figured out. So since my batteries are dying, I think maybe I will leave it there. Thanks for watching, if you are watching, and I'll leave you with this last guy. No, thanks for watching, and eventually this guy will be like that guy after I slop more paint on it. Goodbye.